Good morning. We are live and on the record. Welcome, everyone. Happy Monday. This is the Tennessee Auctioneers Commission meeting. My name is Roxana Gamusio. I am the executive director with this program, and I want to welcome everyone here today. The information for this meeting was posted to the board's website on August the 3rd. This meeting was properly noticed to the public, including the time and date for the meeting as of August 16th, 2021. I would like to go ahead and take roll call to make sure we've got quorum and can proceed. Chairman Kimball Sterling. Thank you. Vice Chair Jeff Morris.
Here.
Larry Sims.
Here.
Ed Knight.
Here.
Thank you. And Dwayne Rogers.
Here.
Thank you. Everyone is here for this meeting, and we do have quorum. Notice of this meeting was properly noticed, as previously mentioned. Next, all of our members have been sent in advance the agenda, minutes, and redacted legal report to review. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at these. I would need a motion and a second if the agenda can proceed as it's been presented. Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Sterling and a second by Mr. Sims. All those in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We will proceed with the agenda as stated. Next, regarding the May minutes that were sent to you, they're also available on your iPads. You'll notice the presentation a little bit different. I go ahead and connect all the documents in the order they'll come up so you don't have to go back and forth. Please let me know if the minutes are, if you found any amendments that need to be added. If not, I would need a motion and a second to accept as they are presented.
Moved.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Morris and a second by Mr. Sterling. All those in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With no amendments, the May minutes will be posted to the website as soon as the meeting ends. Next, if I can direct you to the educational review items. They start on your iPad on page 11. I'll let the members review. We have basically 4 separate items and that I'll need, I apologize, 3 separate items that we'll need to motion on the record. These items start with the Tennessee Auctioneer Association. The request is for sponsorship, which the Commission has authority to grant under 62-19-116. This is for 2022 Fall Conference. The CE is part of what comes out of the educational fund for this program, and the total amount should not exceed $7,500. Please let me know if you have any questions. This is the 6-hour course available to all of our auctioneers, and if they're able to take it, and we would need a motion and a second to accept this.
Couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
What is our balance in our educational?
That's a real good question. I will make sure to send the final recap for everyone. By statute, we have a minimum of $150,000. We're at least $250,000, so we have way
Excess
above the
funds.
minimum. Yes.
And are they going to speak to this today, or are we just going to vote on it?
Are they on the call today, Bob? Oh, thank you. Come on up.
Drew, did you want to say something?
Drew Williams. I'm on the board of directors of Tennessee Auctioneers Association. Here present today, if there are any questions. This is our winter convention CE that we put together every year. We put together a panel of some really good speakers and all, and this will give continuing education free. If the commission so chooses to pay for it, it will make the CE free for any Tennessee auctioneers that want to come and be a part of it.
Or just give us a highlight of who's coming.
Yeah, it's Sherm Holstetler.
Right.
I may mess that name up. I hope that's not. I haven't messed that up. There's a judge in there. I may mess his name up here. Let me see. Let me pull that up.
No, Mike Fisher is coming.
Mike Fisher's coming. There's an attorney that
Toby
we've
Gilly.
asked. I don't know him, but he's going to come and talk escrow. Then on Sunday, we've got an expert panel there. I'm not sure that that's part of the CE package, but it's a Q&A there on Sunday. But Mike Fisher, Sherm Holstetler, and then the judge, and pardon me for not knowing his name, will be the CE package that will be given on Monday.
I know I know Sherman and Mike very well, and they're very qualified to do what you're talking about. And I will move that we accept their proposal and allocate the $7,500 towards the education.
Thank you. We have a motion by Jeff Morris and a second by Kimball Sterling. All those in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Williams, thank you very much for the added information. I appreciate that. Next on your iPads is a presentation by the Nashville Auction School. This is a request for approval of synchronous education for 6 hours of CE offered in the 3 divisions. We would need a motion and a second to accept those as well.
That one course by Jay Cash, or is he doing
Correct. He's on the call, I believe. Correct, Bob? So if you have any questions, we'll make sure that he unmutes himself. He'll be able to hear you all.
Move that we
We have a motion. Do we have a second or any other questions? Thank you. We have a motion by Jeff Morris and a second by Dwayne Rogers. All those in agreement of the course as it was presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any additional questions regarding this session? Hearing none. Our third item is a 50-hour course for the affiliate auctioneer qualified education. That starts on your iPads. If you touch anywhere on the screen, you should see the page numbers at the bottom. It starts on page 31. And I don't know if anyone is here regarding, and this is coming from the Auctioneer University. I believe there's a name change in their company as well, but they presented all the documents that you should need to look. So I want to make sure to give you plenty of time.
Auctioneer U, Junior Staggs out of West Tennessee, and he's been doing a school down there for some time and does a real good job. Used to have a thing called bid calling boot camp, and he's very well qualified to teach this course. And I'm glad we got another place for apprentice auctioneers to get their education, which is always good. I would move that we approve that course.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Morris, for the added information on that. Really appreciate it. We have a motion by Mr. Jeff Morris and a second by Kimball Sterling. All those in agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to the course? Hearing none. Any additional questions? With that, members, we've concluded the education review of our agenda, and I will move on to those appearing before the board. We had planned on Ms. Bohannon, Priscilla Bohannon, appearing before the board to ask some questions. However, something has come up and she's not coming in person. She's able, of course, to view our meeting as soon as it gets posted. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Anna Matlock so she can explain to the commission what we would like to do next regarding public automobile auctions and auctioneers and some clarification. Anna, it's all yours.
Good morning. During the past couple of months, we have had some discussions with a few licensees and consumers related to our public automobile auctioneer and auction license specifically. And as you know, there was an AG opinion that was passed in that was released in 2009 related to the public automobile auction license. In 2019, there was an auctioneer task force, and this task force essentially rewrote several of the statutes, and those statutes went into effect. After those statutes went into effect, several changes occurred, which, as many of you know, changes such as the firm license was removed, gallery licenses were removed, certain things such as this. And in light of that, we have realized that there have been some changes and impacts that have occurred with the public automobile auction and auctioneer license that we think are in need of some clarification. This particular license is an area that is not the most clear or concise portion of the statute, and we think that is an area that could use some additional clarification. And because of that, one of the reasons that we decided, primarily when I was discussing with the executive director, the legal department, in conjunction with the program, also spoken with the assistant commissioner as well, think that it may be in the best interest, after speaking with the commission, if it is your decision to request an additional attorney general opinion for clarification on the public automobile auction license. So I was just going to kind of give you some additional context into what that opinion kind of went through and what has changed with the additional statute change, and what we think would need additional clarification. And so before I went through that, I wanted to see if there was some initial kind of questions, thoughts, feelings before I went through that conversation. Yes, no? Okay. So in 2009, there were two different questions that were requested in the Attorney General opinion. The first question that was posed to the Attorney General was, does the chapter require the public automobile auction to be either owned by a sole proprietor, that is a licensed public automobile auctioneer, or owned in part by an individual who is a licensed public automobile auctioneer? And the second question was, is the requirement that the public automobile auctioneer also be a licensed motor vehicle dealer satisfied, where the public automobile auctioneer owns in whole or part an entity licensed as a motor vehicle dealer? So one of the reasons that we originally got on this subject is, if you recall, we have a set of rules pending that would require the public automobile auctioneer to obtain a motor vehicle dealer license in their individual name. And so in 2009, the Attorney General's office stated that a public automobile auction is essentially defined as offering motor vehicles for sale to the highest bidder. And based on that definition, it stated that based on that, it is a means or process and thus cannot be owned. And so by that definition, it stated that the public automobile auction itself was not something that could be owned. And so the justification that was used through that process was that at that time, a public automobile auction was required to be managed, arranged, and carried out by a licensed public automobile auctioneer, who at that time is required to be a natural person, and that person's firm. So at that time, every auctioneer is required to have a firm. And so because an individual, an auctioneer and a firm was required to manage, carry out, and arrange an auction, they said because of that, an auction wasn't required to be owned. It could not be owned because the auction was being conducted and arranged through an auctioneer and a firm. So that was the reason for the meaning, essentially, for a public automobile auction to not be owned. So, but it was required that a motor vehicle dealer, an auction at that time, a public automobile auction, was to hold a motor vehicle dealer license and a licensed public automobile auctioneer license. So I think one thing that is important when we're talking here is to talk about the different types of names. So when we're looking at the definition for motor vehicle dealer, the definition per the law, a motor vehicle dealer, it's defined as a person who is engaged in the business of selling, offering to sell, soliciting to sell, soliciting, or advertising the sale of motor vehicles. So I'll say that again. So a motor vehicle dealer is defined as any person, and I'm saying person because this is going to be important here in a second, engaged in the business of selling, offering to sell, soliciting to sell, soliciting or advertising the sale of motor vehicles. So this is where it gets kind of confused in the world of like legal language. So person and individual are different. I know. It sounds really silly because they're used interchangeably in like everyday life. So for the context of what we're talking about, when we are talking in this discussion, when I'm talking about an individual, I'm talking about Commissioner Sterling. I'm talking about Commissioner Knight, Commissioner Sims. We're talking about individual human beings. But when I'm talking about persons, I'm talking about partnerships. That includes partnerships. That includes associations. That includes trusts. That includes estates. That also includes natural persons too. So when we're talking about motor vehicle dealers, that includes more than, we're not talking just about individuals. So we're talking about, for example, when we're talking about motor vehicle dealers, we're talking about Nissan, we're talking about Kia, we're talking about Ford. So at that time, when we're talking about motor vehicle dealer license, that's what we're talking about, motor vehicle dealers. We're talking about the big kind of like companies. But when we're talking about like motor vehicle, if I'm holding like a motor vehicle dealer license, I can hold a motor vehicle dealer license essentially as a sole proprietor, right? If you're familiar with business kind of nomenclature. But if I'm talking about me as Anna, I'm holding like a salesperson's license too. Does that make sense? Not a bit. Okay.
Got me completely confused.
Okay. So for example, in auctioneers.
Rather than get bogged down in the definitions, what is the problem and what are we going to do to solve it? That's what I.
No, so the problem is that the Auctioneer Commission only licenses individuals. Correct. But one of the licenses that is required in our statute requires a license that is more than an individual. So when we require a motor vehicle dealer license.
Yeah, but we don't require that.
Yes, we do.
The Auctioneer Commission requires they have a motor vehicle license?
You require
No, I think Motor Vehicle Commission requires it. But I
a
don't think we
public
require it.
automobile auction license requires a motor vehicle dealer
Our
license
statute or motor vehicle?
by our statute.
Okay. What's the fix?
So the fix is that we are requesting an attorney general opinion to figure out what we do now with the auction license. Because the way that the auction license is set up now, it is set up as a means or process. And as a means or process that cannot be owned, it does not make sense for an individual. So if we look at 128, so for an auction, it says you are required to have gatekeeper. It says you're required to have liability insurance. You're required to have, for example, you're required to have a net worth of $100,000. You're required to have a surety bond licensed by a bonding company. You're required to have a financial statement prepared in accordance with accepted accounting principles by a certified public accountant no earlier than 12 months.
That's not under our statute.
Yes, it is under your statute in 62-19-128.
Okay.
Anna, can I get some clarification on this? Is this in regards to, and I apologize, I don't know the exact rule, but at a public auction where you're selling a house and personal property and they happen to have 2 cars, is there still a limit on the number of cars that can be sold if it's the estate being sold? Is that what we're talking about, or are we talking about something totally different?
If you're selling a car, you are required to have a public automobile auctioneer license.
Any amount?
Any car,
But-
unless you own the car, unless you own the car.
So I was under the impression that there was if it was an estate.
When did that change? Because we had an exclusion for 5 cars.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Unless you own the car.
Make sure that the light is on red in case we have someone they will hear you.
Right, but
There you go.
Unless
I know
you own the
when we
car,
were-
unless you own 5 cars.
well, let me just say this: in all of our discussions when the motor vehicle people were at the task force, they clearly said that 5-car exclusion would stay in, and that's what we were told. Now, whether it says that or not, and I mean, you know the law a whole lot better than I do, but I'm just saying that was there when we had all of our discussions. They said the 5-car deal was ironclad.
I'm telling you what the statute says. The statute says the 5 cars is if you own 5 cars. If you own 5 cars, you do not require a motor vehicle dealer license. If it's an estate and you have a court order, you do not need a motor vehicle dealer license. Anything else is in the motor vehicle dealer commission, and we're not talking about that right now.
Oh, I get that.
So
I'm just
so
saying,
you're confirming that we can sell 5 cars without
only if you own
No,
them.
if you own them.
You got to personally own them.
If
you
you,
like the auctioneer owning them?
if you as a person own the cars.
But so what about an estate is not? So let's say somebody passes away and they're selling the estate and they've got 3 cars. You can't do that without a license of.
Have a court order. You need a court order.
Local judge and say you need a court order, and you can do it.
To me, if we needed to go back and change something, I would.
I understand, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Okay.
So let's go back to what
Okay.
we're talking about right now.
I'm trying to get my arms around this public automobile thing.
Right. So that's another issue that we'll talk about another time. So let's go back to what we're talking about at this time.
Anna,
right
can I
now.
have one more clarification? Is this dealing strictly with automobile auctions and nothing else? So in other words, Johnny gets a corner lot and he wants to auction off automobiles. This is what we're talking about, right?
So we're talking about
Not an estate sale.
No, we're not
Okay.
talking about estate sales. We're talking about public automobile auctions. So what I'm talking about here, public automobile auctions. And so the requirements I'm talking to you about today are what are in the public automobile auction statutes for the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission.
And I moved that we get the Attorney General.
It's not red. Just hit. There you go.
I move that we turn this over to the Attorney General and let him come up with a.
But do you understand what we're talking
Yeah,
about?
now I do. I think you could talk for 16 hours and everybody wouldn't understand all of it. But I think the district attorney could come up with a decision because he's going to come up with it ultimately anyway.
The Attorney General?
Attorney
We're talking about
General,
the
I mean,
Attorney
yeah.
General.
And I think we got a new one now, don't we? We're getting a new one.
Not until, my understanding is in October, there will
Right.
be a new Attorney General.
Right. But, and I don't understand it all. And I understand why none of us understand it all. But if we get a decision of what he thinks it is, then that's when we can really look at it and see. Basically, what I'm seeing from you today, and I understand some of it, but the second explanation when you started after Jeff said, and I both said we didn't understand it, was help me understand it more. It really did, even though I don't like it.
I mean, it's our intent as a commission member, and been on the task force. We want to have it where we have a person who is lawfully licensed by both the Motor Vehicle Department and the Auction Commission that we can look to in the case of a problem. That's the bottom line. In other words, we don't want ABC LLC to be the person that gets the license, because we want an individual to be held responsible, not a corporation to be held responsible. That was the whole purpose of having that public automobile auctioneer's license held by an individual, not a person.
Right, we're talking about two different licenses here, just clarifying.
How about the public automobile auctioneer license?
Yes, and there is a public automobile auction license too.
That's what you're talking about, though, isn't it?
I mean, now she's saying something completely different now.
Yeah. She's talking about a
You're
dealer
saying there's two
license.
different kinds of licenses?
Yes.
Well, that was never the intent.
But that's
Well,
been,
that's always
it's always been.
It's always been that way.
Talking about you have to get a dealer's license.
No, she's saying you got to have a public automobile auction license and a public automobile auctioneer's license.
Yes.
Both of them?
Yes.
That
That's
makes
nuts.
no sense. That literally makes no sense.
Person and individual has to have a license.
It's they're two different licenses, and that's the way it's been prior to the task force and after the task force.
I've been on this commission 12 years. I never heard that before in my life.
Burden did.
Well, the reason that so there are, I think what's happening here is that we're unsure of, we don't know what's required of both of the like what's in the statutes of what is required for the auction license, because prior to what I was stating of what is required to be in the auction is the confusion that we were having, is what we thought was required on the MVC side. But see, what is the public automobile auction and auctioneer license, they're duly licensed. So they're licensed both by the Motor Vehicle Commission and by the Auctioneer Commission. So that means that some of the requirements are on both commissions. So when I was saying the surety bond and the what is required of the legal liability insurance, the net worth, business sign, those things, those are required on both sides for the Motor Vehicle Commission and for the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission. Those things have been required for both commissions both times.
So let me ask you this. Is there a way for us to take that language that we have and streamline it to where if my son wanted to come in here tomorrow and get a public automobile auctioneer, he would know exactly what to do? Right now, you're saying it's very convoluted and nobody really knows. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
Is it? I mean, if somebody comes to Nashville tomorrow and says, "I'm going to fill out all the paperwork to get a public automobile auctioneer's license so I can start selling cars," you're saying that it's very convoluted. Nobody really knows what's required.
Right, so we're trying to figure out there are certain questions that we need answered that we believe that we need assistance from the AG that can help us with.
Okay, well,
And so that's why we're asking for permission, or if you guys think it would be useful.
I definitely think we need to have these answers to these questions so that we can come back to the commission and say, this is exactly what we need to do to clean this up.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
I'm all in
our
favor of that.
intention.
Motion's on the floor.
So I'd like to introduce our Assistant Commissioner, Alex Martin. Turn it over to you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, thank you for being here this morning. Mr. Chairman, Commission members, thank you for being here this morning and for engaging in that conversation. I don't want to interrupt and want to make sure that there's ample opportunity to have more robust discussion to be very clear about the questions that we're putting forward if you all need that additional clarity. I did want to clarify that for this commission to vote and seek an Attorney General's opinion, the department would be in support of that. So we've had conversations with Roxana, legal, and then also I want to recognize Mark Green, who's here, our chief legal counsel for the division. And sort of this is a difficult and hard to understand issue, but as you all have had this conversation, there's sufficient ambiguity in the law that we need this additional opinion so that we've got that clarity for staff so that we know what the pathway for this particular license type is. Now, that doesn't get us so far as changing the statute, but it would give us clarity so we sort of know the bounds for which we're operating in. So just wanted to say that on the record and make sure that you all understood that we've had that conversation internally and that we're supportive of this route as well.
Motion's on the floor to accept.
Second.
Let me make sure that thank you, Commissioner. So we have a motion to allow the legal team and Anna to put together the questions needed for us to proceed with an AG's opinion. As Assistant Commissioner Martin explained, that will go through internally for our offices too, but we're in support of that. So the motion would be to ask for the AG's opinion and whatever questions we think are deemed. I have Mr. Kimball as the motion. Who seconded that? Jeff? I think all of you are, so I appreciate that. We have a motion and a second. I think we have several seconds. So I have a motion by Sterling Kimball and a second by Jeff Morris to proceed as legal advices with questions to the AG for clarification. All those in agreement, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. We will proceed and probably at the next meeting be able to at least give you some update, but this could take a minute. I think everyone's aware that those requests will go through the proper channels and come back to us as soon as possible. Thank you. Anna, anything else on this? No? Okay. I appreciate everybody's feedback and questions, rightfully so. Next on your iPads, we have the director's budget. That is on page 47, 48. You're looking at numbers through June. These are the preliminary numbers for fiscal year 21-22. And there's nothing on the report that concern me. I do know that they're going to need to do an adjustment to one of the lines on the cost backs for legal. So we have 3 different entries at the end of the year. So don't be surprised that those will include final cost backs. But so far, of course, we've got a reserve balance of 492,000 and change, and this year did end in a positive. So any questions regarding our numbers? I will at the end of the meeting email everyone the final number that we have for the educational fund, just so you have that as well. And that's just information. Next, I will turn it over to Anna for the legal report and just a quick, if you could do a quick recap on the rules in the pipeline so they understand that those were pulled back.
Yes, so we have the rules right now related to the public automobile auctioneer rules, placing the motor vehicle dealer license in the Public Automobile Auctioneers individual name. So in light of the request for the Attorney General opinion, so we're going to put the rules on hold until we get a response for the from the Attorney General's office. So those are at the Attorney General's office. So once we get that response, we'll so I'll move forward with the legal report. I'll just ask if anyone has any questions.
And those two cases start on page 50 through the 52 on your iPad.
About either of number 1 or number 2. 2022-015181, 2022-017961.
Like number 1, you guys had a license for a long time, isn't that correct? Like
2009.
2009.
And I saw a suggestion if you get 500 fine. But during the pandemic, we're still in a pandemic, but during the hard part of it, there's a lot of things that were supposed to happen that didn't happen. I mean, all of us did it. I stayed at home and cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner for my whole family and gained 70 pounds. Now I've lost it plus 30 more. But how long was he without a license?
It expired in 2020, September 19th of 2020.
But after the report came in, from the time between his license ended and this case came up, what was the monthly time?
Their license has yet to be renewed.
No, but at the time the complaint came in.
The complaint was opened in May of 2022, and their license today is still not active.
For questions?
So he's approaching 90 days after he's been made aware that they do not have a license.
Yes.
Not responsibility to tell you that your license is lapsed. Is that correct?
We send reminders for renewals.
Well,
They
I
go
know
out
you
about,
do, but
yeah,
if
that's
you
it.
don't get it.
What is his response as to why he hasn't?
So the respondent stated that it was an oversight of theirs, and they stated that they didn't receive a notification for their expiration, but they did take responsibility for not renewing their license. They did, at the time of their response, state that they were in the process of renewing and reinstating their license, but as of today, they still have not reinstated their license. So my recommendation was for a $500 civil penalty to be reduced to $250 if they had renewed their license within 30 days of receipt of the consent order. So if they had renewed their license within the 30 days after receiving the consent order, then it would be $250 instead. If not, it would
when did
still
they
remain.
receive the consent order? Is that the May?
Oh, they haven't sent it yet. So like after the meeting, and I would mail
Additional
it.
30 days.
Yes. So after I mail it, the 30 day would start. Then it would stop.
Do you need that in a motion to accept that?
It would be a motion to accept my recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Are you the second?
Yes.
Just right. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to proceed with, I believe, both cases as legal recommended, and the motion's coming from Dwayne Rogers and a second from Mr. Edward Knight.
Can't talk to it the second.
Oh, you're voting
That's
for the
just on the
first one
first
only.
one, yeah.
I apologize. Thank you. Do we have everyone in agreement with the first one, proceeding with the recommendation from legal counsel? If you're in agreement, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll go on to case number 2.
I can give a summary for this one, if you'd like, or no? Yes? Okay. So the complainant's out of state. This was this was an auction where they placed a bid, and essentially what happened was they were outbid during this time, and they at the time realized that their bid was they were outbid and replaced by another individual, and they believe that they were essentially the respondent did not take all of the steps to contact them fully, to get their information fully contacted. Respondents stated that they made attempts to contact them during the bid time, but they were unable to contact them via phone. It turned out that the complainant had entered their phone number information incorrectly. Respondent was unfamiliar with the individual that had placed the bid, and therefore was unable to confirm whether they would be able to pay the amount for the actual bid for the piece of property that made it, and therefore went with the individual that they were actually able to contact during that time. If this wasn't, they didn't know that the phone number was incorrect until after the fact. Complainant was upset because they were able to contact them via email prior to the information. The complainant believed that because they were able to contact them via email, they should have emailed them for the right phone number. Essentially, this is also because it is a piece of real estate. This complaint was filed with the Tennessee Real Estate Commission as well. The Real Estate Commission dismissed the complaint as well here. I recommended dismissal for the complaint because the respondent made attempts to verify the complainant's identity, but they were unable to, at the time, verify their identity because the information was incorrect at the time. And based on the information that was provided, I didn't find any violations of the rules or statutes, and therefore I recommended.
I don't think any rule that we have that would cover that. I think if they have a complaint, they need to file suit, and then they can file their complaint in court. I agree with your assessment of it, and I move that we dismiss this case.
Second.
Thank you. Regarding case number 2, we have a motion by Jeff Morris to proceed with legal counsel's recommendation, a second by Mr. Kimball Sterling. All those in agreement, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any additional conversations regarding the legal report? Thank you, members. Hearing none, that will put us to new business. We have on our Teams call the Nashville Auction School that is participating. They've asked for the commission's moment to speak, and so they'll all mute themselves. Bob, I'll turn it over to them. We're unable to hear you. I'm not sure if that's Shane. Make sure that your button is unmuted.
Wait when it works.
Oh, Bob, is John on the call? Okay. John, could you test your mic, make sure we can hear you?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes. Thank you, sir. Okay.
It looks like the auction school is no longer on the call. Maybe they're calling back in.
Okay. Well, we'll wait a few minutes if that's okay with the commission. And of course, we've approved their item. I don't know if that's what they just wanted to say, a quick hello, but the Teams link did work. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, John. Separately, I have no new business. Does the commission have any questions, anything else you want to discuss while we give them a minute to log in with us just in case?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Ohio just passed a law that online auctions have to have a license. When's Tennessee going to do that? Is that something we bring before the representatives to get that done? I know it's a sticky subject, but something's got to be done about it.
Regarding online auctions, so at this time, we're still in litigation related to the Macklemore suit. It is still pending with the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals at
I thought
this
that
time.
already been decided, so it's
So
still going.
after the district court made their ruling, it was appealed to the Sixth Circuit. We have already filed briefs, so it is currently still pending. So at this time, the injunction is still in place. So we're still enjoined and still in litigation at this point. So
Now that is involving online auctions required to get a license.
So until we're out of litigation, we're at this point, we're still kind of, our hands are still tied. So post litigation, that is something that can still be considered, but we're still at this point in litigation.
I'm misunderstanding. I thought the litigation was over in commerce. Is auctions have
It is related to interstate commerce, which is related to online auctions. So the injunction in it, we are enjoined from regulating online auctions. So this commission has no jurisdiction related to online auctions at this time.
On our team's participants, we've got a phone call. Shane, I'm not sure if that is you or the Nashville Auction School, but if you can hear me and would like to participate, please unmute yourself. We want to make sure to give you an opportunity to ask the members any questions or any opinions that you wanted to share.
Sure. I think maybe I've got everything working now. Can you hear me? This is Shane with Nashville Auction School.
Shane, welcome. So glad you could join us back. We waited on you to call back, so I appreciate it. And I'll turn it over to you to approach and ask the commission members anything you needed.
Sure. I appreciate you guys this morning, and I won't take up much of your time. First of all, I appreciate the commission's recommendation and approval for the 6-hour course that we're going to be able to continue to go in the 3 grand divisions that you approved earlier. I did want to simply note, just for the record, that the commission, as well as the executive director and Roxana and everyone has been dealing with this public automobile auctioneer situation. I have multiple consumers that are calling into Nashville Auction School and requesting education and looking for guidance, and that's probably why you guys have received those phone calls, because I've been pushing them to you. I would like to go on the record to just say that the Attorney General's opinion obviously is going to be very helpful, but for the commissioners and anyone else that is looking for a little bit of clarity of what's going on the consumer side, ultimately there are multiple auction professionals that are looking to start up a business in the public automobile auction arena. This is not associated with the states whatsoever. This is all public automobile auctioneers that are looking to do this. They are going through all the hurdles that it pertains or that it requires to become motor vehicle dealer license, also getting their principal auctioneer's license. In addition to the principal auctioneer's license, they are getting the public automobile auction license. So they own the business, they have the motor vehicle dealer license, they have the principal auctioneer's license, and then they've gone above that 80-hour core curriculum and received an additional 15 to 16 hours to become a licensed public automobile auction. Then their intention, many of them, because of the lower barrier of entry that we took with the task force, was to simply hire a principal auctioneer who ultimately had also received an additional 15 to 16-hour course to become a public automobile auctioneer, to bring that individual in and call bids. That is the intention of setting up this particular business model. This is multiple people across the state. With that in mind, they are now being told that not only do they have to have a motor vehicle dealer license, not only do they have to have a principal auctioneer's license, not only do they have to have a public automobile auction license, that they also have to have a public automobile auctioneer license. And if they are not going to call the bids themselves, which, let's face it, everybody on this commission understands that if you're running that type of business, you're probably not going to be the person on the podium or on the block. So what they are being told is that they have to hire a principal auctioneer who has a public automobile auctioneer license and has a motor vehicle dealer license. Now, in the scheme of the public automobile business, I think everyone on the commission would understand that you would essentially be hiring your competition at that point. I believe, and I believe a couple of the commissioners were on board when this happened, the task force took on to lower the barrier of entry, that we wanted a responsible party that would ultimately have the motor vehicle dealer license, they would have the principal auctioneer's license, they would have the public automobile auction license, and that would be the responsible party that conducts the business, engaged in the business of selling vehicles. They are handling the title issues, they are handling the escrow money, they are handling all of that. They are the sole proprietor of the business. Our intention, as I saw it, when we were on the task force, when we were handling that, were to allow those business owners that had all three of those licenses to hire an auctioneer to come in and call bids that also had an additional 15 or 16 hours and had acquired the public automobile auctioneer license. For that individual to come and call bids and also be required to have a motor vehicle dealer license, I believe, is not consistent with the intent of what was going on. So if we can somehow help these folks out that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars building facilities, they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars educating themselves, getting insured, showing their net worth, filling up their financials, getting their license to the Motor Vehicle Dealer Commission, and now our auctioneer commission is telling them that the auctioneer that they are putting on their contracts, that they're putting on their application to get their license, that individual has to have a motor vehicle dealer license. I don't believe that was the intent, and I appreciate your time and attention and everything you guys are doing for this industry.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you very much for your time. And the good thing with the recording is we can always listen back and make sure everything's captured as we ask for a new opinion. Commission members, anything else?
I just want to chime in a little bit. I mean, again, if we can streamline this process where we have for the car auctioneers, that once you have that responsible person, he can hire any bid caller he wants to call those auctions, because a lot of those car auctions, they'll have 5 to 10 auctioneers at any one time, in how many lanes you're running at a time under the same auction house. So I think we need to make it easier, not harder, for people to do what we're trying to get done here.
Absolutely, and it sounds like everyone's in agreement that a new opinion will hopefully get us there. So we have nothing else that I can think of. Commission members, if it's okay with you, unless you've got any other questions, I would need a motion to adjourn in a second.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor of ending our meeting, I've got us at 9:55 a.m. Say yes.
Yes.
With no further business to conduct, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very, very much. Shane, thank you for participating. We will end our meeting.